Hi, in this video, we'll be looking at some solution to Lab 3 and Lab 4. In Lab 3, we have been asked to write a program to do a tax calculator, and we have been given some conditions here. The first condition that we have here is that if a citizen's income is not higher than 85,000 naira, 85,528 naira, the tax should be equal to 18% of that income minus 556.2 naira. Then if the income was higher than this amount, then we should add 14,000 naira to 32% of the surplus. The surplus is the income minus 85,528. All right. So in this, the approach that we'll be taking is from this first condition here, we can see that we'll be using if statement. This lab 3, we come across it in our, when we're treating the if, when we're treating conditions, which is the if statement. And yes, we'll be using if statement to solve this lab. And let us go right straight to our code. Okay, so based on what they've asked us to do, okay, let us read more instructions. There are still more. They said our task is to write a tax calculator. Then they said that it should accept one floating point. All right. Our task is very simple. You should accept one floating point. That means we are to input something. Then whatever we are imputing, we'll have to cast it into a floating point. All right. Then there is a function called round that we should use, and that is given to us in our skeleton code. And if, and our final if, yeah, I can see under if is they said that if the calculated tax is less than 0, then okay, then we should the tax should be 0. Okay, so this is our skeleton code, and this is our tests data that we'll be working with. All right, so let us have our skeleton code out. We have our, we'll be collecting an input and we'll be casting it into floating point. So we are asked to enter the annual income. Okay, then we should write our code. Write our code here. Then we have tax is equal to tax. They've given us this already. So what this does is it's going to round our answer into a whole number. Oh, sorry, tax is equals to round. Then tax here. Then we are to finally print the tax is so you would see that I'm using a single quote and double quote interchangeably. It doesn't matter anyone you use actually. On normal day, I usually prefer to use the single quote, but then this is just to show you that you can use either of them anyhow, anyways. But then I prefer using the single quote. Okay, so that's our skeletal code, and we have that out already. Okay, so oh yeah, we have to write our code now. All right. So one of the first, the very first condition is to check if our input, yeah, to check if the citizen's income is not higher than. So if the citizen's income is greater than 85,528, then the tax. Oh, sorry. If the income I meant is lesser, sorry, is lesser than this amount, then we should remove 18% from the income. All right. So we'll start with that very first if. We know we've collected an income and we've named it income. We collected it from the keyboard and we named it income. So our condition will be income when income is less than that amount, which is 85,528. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, if the income is 85528, it's less than 85528, then this is what we should do. What are we to do? Is not higher than, then the tax should be equal to 18% of the surplus of the income minus 556.2. So that means our tax should be equal to 18%. 18% of a number should be 18 divided by 100 times the amount, which is our income in this case. And yeah, we'll subtract 18% of that income minus 556.2. All right. So we have done the first part, which is this. Then the second part is that if the income was higher than 85,528, then we should add 14,839.2. We should add it together with 32% of the surplus. Surplus will be the income minus 85,000. So now, whenever after we've gotten the surplus, then we subtract. That means the income minus is 5,528. We add 14,000 to 32% of that surplus. All right. So this is what we are trying to say. So now we've done the first part, which is if the income is less than. Now, then this means that if the other part will now be else. The reason why we are using else and not elif is because we are only checking for two conditions here at this point. And the first condition is that if it is less than this amount, but in as much as the amount is equal to or greater than, exactly. So once it is equal to or greater than, we should do the other condition, which is what we're about to do. So first thing we want to get is our surplus. Our surplus should be equal to the income minus 85,528. Then after we've gotten our income, then our tax can now be computed, which is going to be 14,839.2. Then we'll add it together with 32% of the income. I could have written it out without putting inside parentheses actually, because division and multiplication, they are much bigger than addition on the scale of preference. Multiply by surplus, okay? And yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, that's all. Okay, there is still one more condition. There's still one more condition. Oh, sorry about that. Somebody in the chat box was telling me now, that they could not see what I was typing. Okay, sorry. So I was saying that if income was less than this, then our tax should be 18% of the income minus this amount. Now, the reason why we are using else here is because we are now checking for the other part. That means if income was greater than, is equal to this amount or greater than this amount, then we get the surplus. And how to get the surplus is by getting the income minus the amount, right? Then then the tax will now be 14,000 plus 32% of the surplus. Then the other condition that we've been asked to get is that if the tax calculated is less than 0 or equal to 0, our tax return should be also 0. So that will just be an if statement. That means if tax is less than or equal to 0, then our tax should be equal to 0 at all time. All right, I think that should be all. Yeah, so if I should save this and run this code, uh, okay, yeah, we got an error. There should be no space here. Less than or equal to. That's why it's saying invalid syntax and it's pointing here. So enter our annual income. So let us try the first test input. We say we should try with 10,000. All right. Yeah, so our answer should be 1244. Yes, which is what we got here. All right, so let us try with 100,000. So remember, when we are treating literals, we said we can write numbers like this for readability purpose. Where we have thousand, yeah, you can separate it with an underscore. It is still exactly the same. Let's do this. Yeah, it's still exactly the same. See, we still get the same answer here. So let me run the code again and try it with the next 1,000. 0, and the final one is minus 100. 0. All right, so that solves, this is the solution to the very first lab. And let us see lab 4. Here we have been asked to determine if a year is a leap year or a common year. And these are the set of conditions that they've given us. If the year number is divisible by 4, it's a common year. Otherwise, if the year number is, oh, okay, so we've gotten all the conditions. We have a bunch of conditions here already. So I think we'll just go right ahead into it. They've given us the skeletal code, which is year and that. So let us have that in our code. We have year. Input. So we are casting our input to becoming an integer. So we have our code here. Okay, so that is all about skeletal code that they've given us. So let us quickly rush back to. Yeah, so these are the bunch of conditions they've given us. If the year is not divisible by, okay, let us start by that. I know it's definitely an if statement. So I'll start with if year, which is what we've collected, is not divisible by 4. So this is how to represent not divisible by 4. That means year mode 4. You know, year mode 4 shows us the remainder of whatever thing you are dividing with. Let's say we are doing 5. We've done this in arithmetic operation already. So if you have 5 mode 2, it shows that what will be the remainder by the time you divide 5. By the time you divide 2, 5 by the time you divide 2 by 5. What am I saying? Okay. So by the time you have 5 divided by 2, what will be the remainder? That is the work of modulo. So if the remainder is 0, it means that 5 is perfectly divisible by 2. But in this case, it will not be. So that means it is not divisible. So that is why we are trying to use mode here. So it means that by the time you use the year that you've imputed and you do mode 4, if the answer you get is not going to give us 0, so how do we represent not equal to? We use the not equal to, yeah, which is not equal to 0. Then we can now say print common year. Okay, so print our common year. Now the other condition says that otherwise, if it is not divisible by 100, just the same thing we've done, but this time we use elif. Elif means we have done a condition and it was not met. So let us do another condition. And if the second condition is met, do the next instruction, which is what we're trying to do here now. 100 not equal to 0. Then this should be a print. So like I said, you notice I'm using double quote and single quote interchangeably, but I prefer using the single quote every time. Then we have another condition that says if these first two conditions are not met, do another condition. So that's where we are now. So the next condition is now that if year is not divisible by 400, yeah, by 400, then do this. Then print common year. Okay. Otherwise, just print a leap year. That's what the question says. Else, print leap year. Okay, so I think that's okay. So we have one more part that says also because the Gregorian year began 1582. If you input anything that is outside the Gregorian year, it should return not within the Gregorian calendar period. Okay, so I think to do this one, I think that should be the first thing we should check. Yes, that should be the first thing we should check before we start checking if it's a leap year or not. So I think this last one should come first. So we have to put that condition as the very first condition. So we can't have it as a standalone condition. And the reason is because if we should do it as a standalone condition, it would, after skipping that part, it would just come here and do everything again. But what we'll do here is now, we might turn this to an elif and have the first if statement to be if year is less than 1582, then we can print not within the Gregorian calendar period. All right. So I think this is much like it. So let us try to run this code with our test input. We have 2000, 2015. All right. We have the book with you. So let us, the first one is 2000. 2000 is a leap year. Yes, it is. 2015 is a common year. And yes, it is. So let us run more examples. 1999. 1999 is a common year. Yeah, and yes, it is. Let's run more example. Minus 100 is obviously not right. So not within the Gregorian. So just to be sure, let us try 1582. 81. 81. Not within the Gregorian calendar period. All right. So that is it for now. And please, you can check with whatever thing you've done before now. See what, if you have done it before and you have the correct answer and it's working fine, check the differences and see if there are places you should improve or not. And there are so many approaches to it really, but then I recommend this. All right, thank you and see you in the next video.